Today we're going to do the anatomy of the urinary system. So we'll start over here and we'll look at the ureters coming down from the kidneys. These are called ureters. They go into the urinary bladder. If we open up the urinary bladder, okay, we can see inside here, you've got the urethra that leaves the urinary bladder. And then you've got this white area here, okay? This is not really a structure, this is an area. It's basically the area between the two openings of the ureters and the opening of the urethra, and it's called the trigone, all right? Now, let's look at the kidney macroscopically first, then we'll look at some of the microscopic structures. So when we look at the kidney, the covering on the kidney is called the renal capsule. It's this brown covering here, okay? Now, we have regions of the kidney as well. This region here, the superficial region there, that's called the renal cortex, and this region deep to it is called the renal medulla, all right? Now, we have one thing that people tend to get confused on. There's a space or an area where vessels go in and out of the kidney. This area here, so if I bracket that, okay, that is called the renal hilum. It's not a structure, it's an area, right, between here and here. Here's that ureter that we saw on the other model, okay? When the ureter passes through, technically the urine goes this way, but when it passes through the renal hilum, we're in this area here. This is called the renal pelvis. Right here, okay? Now, the renal pelvis connects to what's called this tube, not this, but this tube here is the major calyx. There's another one here, it's a major calyx. And then you have minor calyx that connects to the pyramids. This is called a minor calyx. So if we're going the other direction, we go minor calyx, they directly connect to the pyramids, that's how you know they're minor. They dump into a major, which dumps into the renal pelvis. We have minor, that dumps into a major, that dumps into the major calyx, that dumps into the renal pelvis, okay? So that's how you understand the structures. Now, inside the medulla, we've got some structures. You've got these renal pyramids here, okay? So these are all renal pyramids. In between the pyramids, you have what's called renal columns. That's these guys here, okay? And then at the ends of the pyramids, you've got right at the end here, so like even if we see the end here, it's called renal papilla. Now the pyramids, so here, look at me for 1 second. So the pyramids, like you're looking at them like this, but some of them actually come out this way too, right? Because this is a 3D structure, so the pyramids are not all just in that one plane line, right? And so if a pyramid's coming at you like this, at the end of it's gonna be a renal papilla. Let's look at that. So we look right here, that's a renal papilla of a pyramid, and so behind that is gonna be a pyramid, right? Because this is going to be the tip of the pyramid, which is where the renal papilla is located, all right? So just to make you aware of that. Now, that takes care of the macroscopic structures, but we do have to do blood vessels before we move on to the microscopic. So, blood going into the kidney, we have the renal artery. The renal artery will branch into segmental arteries, which these three are visible. These are segmental arteries. And then when it branches and goes between the pyramids here, those are called interlobar arteries. The interlobar arteries will then branch and arc around the pyramid. These are called arcuate arteries. And then those will then branch and radiate into the cortex, and these are called cortical radiate arteries. Now, we go in reverse with the veins, except there's no such thing as segmental veins, so it's going to be almost the same. We have cortical radiate veins that are draining into arcuate veins, and then going between the lobes of the pyramids here, between the pyramids, we have interlobar veins, and they dump directly into renal vein because there's no segmental veins. And so that takes care of the blood vessels. Now, if we move over to microscopic structure, we're going to look at the nephron. This is a nephron here. So this whole structure here, if I circle it for you, that is a nephron. Now, the parts of the nephron, we've got the beginning portion here. This capsule is called Bowman's capsule, or the glomerular capsule, that has a tuft of capillaries in it called the glomerulus. Let's look at it up close. So here we are. We've got the glomerulus is the tuft of capillaries. If we pull that tuft of capillaries out, we've got this capsule called the Bowman's capsule or glomerular capsule. If we take the capsule together with the glomerulus, so if I say name the whole structure here, what would you say? It would be renal corpuscle. So not renal capsule, renal corpuscle. So both of these together, renal corpuscle, Individually, this is the glomerular capsule, and individually, this is the glomerulus, okay, this tuft of capillaries. Now you have arterioles going in and out of this tuft of capillaries. The arteriole going in to the tuft of capillaries is called the afferent arteriole, and the arteriole going out is called the efferent arteriole. The afferent is always thicker, so it doesn't matter if we see it this way. You look for the thicker one. The bigger one is the one that's going in, so that's the afferent arteriole, okay? And now we'll go back over here to finish the structures. So we're always going to start at Bowman's capsule. No matter where anything is tagged, we start at Bowman's capsule here, and closer to the Bowman's capsule, we have these twisted tubules. These are called proximal convoluted tubules. And then we go down the descending loop of Henle, also called descending nephron loop. We go up the ascending loop of Henle, also called the ascending nephron loop, to the distal convoluted tubules, and then it dumps into this thing that looks like a tree branch here that is called the collecting duct, okay? Be very cautious to pay attention because sometimes they're facing opposite directions. For instance, this one is facing the other direction. So we've got Bowman's capsule, proximal convoluted tubules, descending loop of Henle, ascending loop of Henle, distal convoluted tubules, and then again dumping into the collecting duct. And so that takes care of most of the renal anatomy. We've got two more things I'm going to show. If we look here, okay, we're looking now, there's two types of nephrons. One of them has a short loop, and one of them is like this, has a long loop, okay? And so this type of nephron is technically called a juxtamedullary nephron, and this one is going to have specialized capillaries that surround the long loop, and that's called vasa recta, okay? Any of the capillaries surrounding the other tubules in here, these are called peritubular capillaries. If this was a shorter one, so let's look at this one here. If there is capillaries surrounding all of this, the short loop of Henle and these tubules, those are also called peritubular capillaries. The only one that gets a different name is the vasa recta surrounding the long loop of Henle. That takes care of urinary structure. If you have any questions, let me know. Stay strong. I'll see you next time.